Oh, yeah.
I'd like to call this village board meeting to order. It is 10:10. What we are on agenda item number
6C.
6C, and we can continue on. Any other discussion items from our board members? I did have one clarification, Trustee Maher, that the attorney asked for me to be wise to clarify on your motion. The objection is for two of the members, I believe, that there was no application. I asked the attorney if the application came in, if we pull them from the agenda, for instance, the CDA, we'll use that example, the realtor Destiny is there an opportunity to put the application in, use your objection process, and bring it back to the next committee to see if the board would confirm? And he said no, unless it's specified by you in your motion. Can you please say what would need to be done? And I don't know if that's the intent, but I just wanted to clarify that. Attorney Brown?
Oh, well, my understanding of the motion is to approve the slate without those two individuals. So unless there's a specific motion to remove them from consideration subject to further review of an application that wasn't furnished, then it's just a straight rejection by the board.
And you can't rescind, I can't rescind them, and that's fine, I just want clarification. So the motion stands?
Yeah.
That was the intent, is to deny that nomination.
We submitted no application, which was the agreed to process. They never went through JP&L. There was no opportunity. At the last meeting, this Rick Bessenbacher was on this nominated slate, who now is disappeared, and David Price has been put on. So asking the board to confirm people that we have no, I know their name, but there's no, what are we confirming? Yeah. So my motion stands.
So you don't want to, okay, so even if you knew their qualifications, you don't want to know their qualifications in the future. I'll resubmit a different nomination, a different name. Okay, Trustee Menta.
Can I ask you a question? I know the police commission is simply the village president appoints. Does the bid require board confirmation, or is it just a president appointment?
It was changed in policy in 2017 to have village board with confirmation. It was village president with confirmation. So I think it originally just said village president, but you'll see the amendment at the bottom. Any other questions? Trustee McKay.
Yeah, I would just say on Trustee Maher's comment that my understanding is that the request is to, since we have 125 applicants that submitted applications, just bring forward nominations from that pool that have completed the application process.
And there's no timeline for when those applications can be submitted, if it was submitted tomorrow. So I will bring back another nomination, and potentially they'll have an application in before today or potentially after.
Well, if the motion passes.
If the motion is correct. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do.
Good.
Yep. Trustee Maher, who is seconded by Trustee McKay, to approve the slate of candidates as presented with the removal of David Price, Dusty Loreno, and G. Weber.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? I just want to say I think it would be a shame if Dusty Loreno was not appointed to the CDA. I think it's a timely appointment, and he is a realtor in our community. It is just as you had said, and I confirmed with JPL Chair and the clerk, if you don't have an application for a certain demographic, like an engineer that might be, then the president and the village attorney said, has the authority, and we've done this in the past. President Johnson has always reached out to find that qualification. There's nothing that prohibits that, and I don't think that's a bad practice. So I just wanted to state that before we get a vote in our discussion. Yes, Trustee Bach first.
I would say the difference between what you're outlining and what has done in the past, because I've served on the board for 6 years, is that former President Johnson did have discussions with the full board, with the bid, with the committees, with the organizations. There was dialogue, and there was never mentioned, I have the authority, don't I? So there was much more collaboration. It was a very different process. And I hate to belabor the past because we hear that all tonight. We're also hearing about consistency. We're hearing a bunch of different things in terms being thrown around. So I don't believe you're the authority on what the bid needs and what other boards need. You have, yes, the power to appoint, but you also have the right to listen to and respect the decisions and the information presented by other members of the community.
Trustee Michael.
I mean, I recall appointment of Michael Dawson. to the
John
CDA.
Kraus.
Michael Dawson and John Kraus to the CDA were just made by fiat by President Johnson. The appointment of Dan Wickland to the Plan Commission was made by with fiat by President Johnson. I also want to say about Dusty, a lot of us know him, probably all of us know him. He's lived in Shorewood since he was like 5 years old. He's probably sold twice almost every house in the village, and he has a depth of knowledge of this village and the people here that is really unparalleled. And I think if he were not, he's willing, I think we're lucky that he's willing to serve on the CDA, and he would make a tremendous contribution. And David, I don't know Gene Weber, but David is up before us quite frequently. He organizes a lot of these events. I don't always agree with the events or vote for them, but he's sort of, I think he contributes a lot to the community, and his establishment is sort of a fixture in Shorewood, and I have no problem supporting David Price. I do.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we have a motion before us. Please reread and then we'll take a vote.
Yep, trustee Martin, second by trustee Kidd to approve the slate of candidates as presented of David Price, Dusty Marino, and Jim Weber.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Yeah,
Nay.
Nay.
4-3, motion fails. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the slate of candidates as presented for the bid, the CDA, the Rec Advisory Committee, and Pen Bike Safety.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Trustee Warren, and then Bockhorst.
I think in my ideal world, we would amend that motion to, and I'm just thinking out loud here, to have the 3 candidates submit application paperwork. So we pen those applications until such time as they submit kind of their application paperwork. So we're consistent across the process, and then raise this the next meeting. I don't know if that's acceptable to Trustee Arenta.
Would you like me to withdraw my motion?
I'm going to do a friendly amendment.
I think it would be, the whole board has to agree to that. Is that correct?
I'm okay with just going ahead tonight, so I mean, you can make the amendment.
You can make an amendment.
I move to amend the motion to pen the applications of David Price, Gene Weber, and Dusty Marino until the next meeting.
David Price has an application in.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So I move to pen the applications of Gene Weber and Dusty. I move to pen the applications, the appointments of Gene Weber and Dusty Marino until such time as they submit a complete application consistent with the other applicants for committee positions.
Okay, and so it would be her underlining motion, which is?
To move the slate of candidates.
slate of candidates.
And then, in addition, for the amendment, it would be
Pending approvals
with pending.
of Dusty Marino and Jim Weber until the applications are filed.
Second.
There's the question, so does that mean we're approving, but they're not in effect till their applications are in? Or are you saying we're going to have to come and vote again on the Desi and?
What's the intent?
I would say the intent was to just come and vote it, to go through the process.
But not to disqualify them.
Yeah, it's not
Which,
disqualified.
if without that amendment,
Okay,
our attorney said they couldn't.
okay, all right, okay.
Okay, so we have a amendment motion and a second. Would you want to repeat that, and then we'll vote unless there's further discussion?
Pending approval of Dusty Marino and Jim Weber until the
Okay, all those in, Trust-
So this, we are not approving the three, we're saying they're gonna submit an application.
there's only two. We're approving the slate with the Jean and Destiny that did not have an application for you to review.
I'm gonna vote against that. I think David Price, we have three liquor license holders, fairly all close in the same neighborhood. The bid has recommended Rick Eisenbecker to that position that David Price has been. I'm not recommending that. I'm not gonna vote for David Price.
So you're,
I'm gonna not vote for the motion.
okay, sounds
The
good.
amendment as well, you're not going to do the amendment?
Correct, that's what he said. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, vote, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Okay, so the amendment carries 4-3. Now can you restate the amended motion?
Approve the slate of candidates as presented, but depend approval of Destiny Marino and Jean Weber until complete applications are on file for review.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So motion carries 4-3. Oh, so the motion carries 4-3. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for those who spoke. We will now move on to our next agenda item. But before that happens, I have a request by the village manager to move up if it is determined by the board to end at the agreed upon time that we try to go out.
order of our agenda?
But the village manager, there's one item that we need to take up today that can't be taken up any other day. So Rebecca, what is the item?
So for purposes of, under new business 9, the board will,
Liquor license.
sorry,
Okay, so we have two agenda items that need to be spoken about tonight before anybody should, the village manager and clerk are asking for us not to move to adjourn until those two have been discussed. And so we'll take up the liquor licenses first. Were they pulled from the consent agenda?
They were, so it's
Okay.
items 6, 5, C, and D, Crispy Browns, and Mega Mart.
The crispy brown.
I had asked Christie, I just wanted clarification. Christie Browns, which is whose eggs came in for outside seating, special privilege.
Yep.
The liquor license did not at that time approve an extension of premises. Is this a new renewal? What area outside does it
It
include?
does. It includes whatever they were approved with their.
The seats that
Yep.
around. I really just wanted to know.
Is it included in the packet? Usually in our packet, we have a description of premises, correct? With their application?
I haven't submitted that full application in the last 2 years.
I think we need
Like,
to, so we know what it is. I mean, just, I don't know how you
we
feel.
can- I would make a motion to approve the reserve class B permitted malt beverage and toxic liquor license for Crispy Brown.
Second.
Would you entertain an amendment just to say with follow-up by the clerk to get a description? I guess maybe you said you already have it, right?
I do, yep, and I mean, it does state it in.
I checked it there.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Come on.
I'm done.
Oh, okay, do we have a second?
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. The other one was with Metro Market?
5 to the Metro Market.
Okay, I just had a question for our planning director. And I know we had discussed previously, the question came up, do all of these establishments serve liquor that have liquor licenses? And I'm just, or just wine, because they don't have food, but was there, can you confirm that Metro Market is utilizing the liquor license?
I don't recall being part of that conversation, but I don't believe they are serving liquor. My understanding is it's just beer, but I don't recall being part of that conversation. I apologize.
Oh, okay, when Rebecca comes back, I can ask her, I can defer. Yes?
Do you mean a Metro Market bar?
Yes, I will, they have a liquor license to sell alcohol, and they also hold one of our liquor licenses to sell, like port.
In the bar, they serve beer.
Correct, they do, I know they previously used to, but.
Okay, well, I would like to just confirm with Rebecca while she's here, and then, we had a previous conversation, I thought Art was in favor, it doesn't sound so. Is it confirmed whether or not, any of these on the roster, but right now we're just talking about Metro Market, does or does not serve liquor to hold a full liquor license? Sir?
They don't, this is just like the Gathers, they aren't a restaurant operation really, so their liquor sales probably.
But yeah, correct, that's what I asked, or wine, because they don't have
Yeah, they
food,
don't.
but they have food, so they could get their own, if it was just wine, they could get a wine license. Okay. No? Clerk?
This was all prior to my time. It's my understanding of the product is you could have them on full, because they're not really a full-service restaurant, they're a full-service grocery store.
There's a difference between Class B beer
Sit down.
license and Class B liquor license. The liquor license is the one that covers the hard alcohol and the wine. So, like for example, we had an issue in the past where there was a place that had obtained a full liquor license because they wanted to serve wine with beer, but they weren't actually selling the hard liquor. That did not constitute quote-unquote non-use under our ordinance.
They weren't serving food. This is
So,
a deli
So
where they.
here, I mean, you'd have to evaluate it under, the non-use portion of it. I have no clue whether I can't tell you what they're serving and how long they've been serving.
Do you know, does anyone know if they serve wine?
They serve wine and beer, they don't serve liquor anymore. I had a conversation with the bartender once, they stopped serving liquor, but they serve wine and beer.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna vote no this time, just because, I would like our staff to just, if they don't need a full liquor license, I would like, just let me know, because, based on the fact that they have food. Maybe that, it's a grocery store, as the clerk said, we're not sure, so if you could just get an answer the next time around, that'd be great, if it passes.
Would there be a way, rather than voting on kind of anecdotal reports, I feel uncomfortable with that. Is there a more formal way that we could just hold it? I mean, I know that that's not good for the business. But if we could hold it for more review? I mean, I'm intrigued by your idea, because
It's that last one.
They run from June 30, July 1st through the following.
Would I have to republish?
Yeah.
So I have to republish without the
Is it 15 days?
It has to be the week before the meeting, but by the time I review, it'd have to go in Wednesday. So by the time I review to see if they qualify for a Class C
Well, why don't you
license.
publish regardless and then review? So it's published and then we can still have the discussion. And
So we could possibly.
There's a process you have to go through if you're not going to do it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I want to clarify that I've asked this question repeatedly for over a year now, at least more than once, and so of staff. And I do really want to know, because the grocery store does get a benefit of selling later, selling their actual packaged liquor later than other liquor stores in our community, because they hold an intoxicated liquor license to pour. And so if they're not serving, I'd just like to know that answer.
So if we do not approve it tonight, because we do have one more meeting before, okay. So we would have to, the staff would have to investigate and then
Or
republish
just ask.
with the beer and wine.
They have to apply too, I mean, you're pulling on your own, saying they're applying for a C-level beer license.
Well, in that time, I think Attorney Barrett could get together if the vote was no. If we deferred that one item, that one approval, by the next meeting, we could have Attorney Barrett tell us if it's denied, what are we supposed to do? That saves us time tonight. But anyways, who made the motion?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So,
Trustee Martin.
could we just defer and not vote no? Or is
Yeah, that's-
there an option?
That's the hope.
Okay.
That's my
As
hope.
long as you take action one way or another before the beginning of the month, and there's time to publish the notice, if they do run by state statute, they problem's going to be is if there's an issue with that, there's a notification process. But they will, the statute always also says they'll continue to have the license during the time period.
Right.
So there's that. So we wouldn't pull it up July 1st, pending the outcome. They would continue to carry the license pending the outcome of that process.
I'll move to defer approval of reserve Class B fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor licenses for Mega Marts LLC doing business as Metro Markets until our next meeting, and ask staff to review the possibility of a Class B fermented and a Class C wine license.
Is that the right language? I think it is. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just say thank you in advance for Metro Market for the inconvenience. Any potential inconvenience.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next
That's
item.
it.
That's it?
We're done with licenses.
Okay. So I'd like to move, do I need to make a motion to move an item up? To move it on the agenda because it's published. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move, Rebecca, which item up to? 9 next. 9B to our next agenda item. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and just to reiterate, it's just because this is the only meeting, it's a timely thing, it has to be discussed and voted on tonight. So, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of moving the item up, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Trustee Buckers? Yes or no?
I'm abstaining for that.
You're abstaining? Okay. So we have, any opposed? Motion carries 6 in favor, 1 abstaining, Trustee Buckers, and no no's. Okay. Rebecca, or Leanne?
Yeah, we discussed it in
Oh, yes, thank you.
Public
And I
Works
just
Committee.
mentioned that, committee chair.
Leanne Butzlick, the DPW director, was there, just presenting her memo, which I don't know. There was 4 alternatives presented. There was a general consensus that we needed to look at criteria. 60,000 square feet compared to the average of 27,000 was not right, not working. There was 4 alternatives presented. I think we generally agreed on alternative 3, at least to keep moving forward on a sidewalk program for this year, but to review the criteria and have them review the selected slabs to stay within the contracted amount plus the 15% variance. The committee also felt that in addition, we just need also step back, keep the sidewalk program going for this year, but then also take some time and review the program a little more, but not give up, not cancel the contract as an alternative 4 proposed, which could expose the village to some potential litigation and risk. So I believe alternative 3 is where we ended up in our discussion. Move forward.
Can you just state what that alternative said?
Alternative 3 is to for the staff to modify the existing standards, criteria, and thereby reducing the amount of sidewalk that could be replaced to conform to the estimated contract quantities, which was 27,000 square feet. We do have some variance of 15%. And then there would be, they would reevaluate, do a second evaluation, marking of the sidewalks. There would be an additional cost of $3,000 for that, with the goal of, and hopeful goal of that we would get back down in the range of 27,000.
Can I ask a question about that? Leanne, modifying the criteria, what is the difference in the criteria? Just because I'd like to support that, but I've heard from the residents today and citizens we heard, and I've gotten a lot of emails, that what is the criteria that we're going back to get us to 27,000 square feet? Because I want to make sure what I'm voting for is something that I believe in.
Well, what I would propose is that, so we have criteria that, with the exception of adding grinding, which we did on April 1st, that criteria has not changed in over 20 years.
Does it still say mud jacking?
It does.
Okay, so eventually we would take that out if we're not doing any more. Okay.
I think it's clear that the difference has been in the application of the criteria.
So it's not changing the criteria.
Right. Well, what I would propose is, under alternative 3, staff would bring back revised criteria to you at your very next meeting. And those criteria would be a step, they would be not as stringent as the current criteria. That would allow us to have a set of agreed upon principles for sidewalk replacement. But again, they would not be as stringent as current, and
Like, can you just give me an example before we...
the intent would be to create a written criteria that matches what has previously been applied.
So previously we weren't following the existing criteria, but
Not to the letter.
Okay, and could you just give me an example of what we, in the current criteria, what we used to not really follow or were less stringent on? That you would come back, just one example with a revision for us. I just want it to be worth your time.
I think the current criteria speak to having I can't recall the exact wording, but basically it speaks to the center 4 feet of walkway. So a typical sidewalk stone is 6 by 5.
Okay.
So the center 4 feet of that, they want the criteria speaks to be clear of imperfections, we'll say. That's not the exact language. And so as applied this year, the engineer was there with a tape measure, right? Because that's what it says.
Okay.
But I think we would look at potentially saying maybe the center 3 feet, or it has cracks with a width of opening of 1/4 of an inch. Maybe we would look at increasing that to a 1/2 inch. It would just be
But the question would be, are you saying that the current criteria, just on here, that you disagree with the current criteria, or is it's been modified because, so in other words, we have sidewalks, and as an engineer or as a village, we have criteria based on what we believe would be dangerous or when we would replace. And so you say it's safe, for that example, you say it's just wait. So I want to know that when you come back to us that you're saying 3 feet is the right, what you believe and engineers believe is the right safety measure. Because if it's 4 feet, then we should be voting on, do we want to have another contract? So I just want to know that that criteria changes based on a professional opinion and not how much money's been authorized.
Right. So the 3 and 4 feet is just the first example off the top of my head.
Okay. So
I don't disagree with the current criteria.
okay.
But I've also been around long enough to realize that those particular criteria may not be palatable on an assessed project. And the reality of it is they are very strict. They are very strict. And it may not be necessary to have standards as strict as those are and still maintain public safety and prevent liability issues.
Good, last question. So I would like, and this would probably be the proper place, but I know time's short. So if we had more time for a longer discussion, I would like to reassess putting things on to the tax rules rather than special assess. So I'm not going to vote for criteria based on that because it's special assessed, it might, they might object to it. I really want to know what does our staff and our engineer that we've hired think is the right criteria, and then to decide how we're going to handle the funding mechanism this year based on what we have budgeted, and next year based on whether, the board would like to do special assessments or taxes. So I think that's the linear approvals that make sense to me. So I don't know what that would do for what we should do tonight. I guess there's a motion about.
They're gonna come back at the next meeting. They were seeking direction. I think the committee said, we don't want to do more bonding. We don't want to spend, we haven't levied for this. And there is a discussion, probably in the upcoming budget cycle, on do we assess for it? It's a whole.
You don't need to change the criteria though. I mean, we could approve just doing, she just said in 10 years,
we've done 27,000 and the sidewalks in the other quadrants are quite passable, so something, the way it was applied or something.
So my question is, do we need to change the criteria? Because it may change right back if we're just trying to fit, do we need to change the criteria in order to just do our, what we bid out? Can you go and assess, or $3,000 say, this is how we used to apply this same criteria for the last 20 years, or however long it's been here, and get it to the 27,000, then next year during budget, we could reassess whether we want to do.
Not with the existing criteria. And the reason I say that is that there are a large number of people who are very interested and engaged in this project. And at this point, it would be impossible for our staff or our contract engineer to take those criteria and be subjective with them.
We've done it in the past.
But now we're on a different playing field now.
Okay.
I mean,
So it's not
now we've
possible.
admitted that we, in the past, may not have applied the criteria the same way we are applying them now. And so that becomes a very different conversation with a resident who disagrees with the application of the criteria.
Trustee Moore.
So just to kind of, to try to put a bottom line around it. So if we want to be consistent with what we've done in the past, we need to choose something like option 3 where you go and you relax the criteria a bit. I mean, I think we're trying to work towards consistency with our past actions here, as opposed to this kind of 100% increase. So the recommendation to get to that consistency would be alternative number 3.
That would be one way of getting there. That's probably the quickest way to get there. If I could just say, I think the one decision that needs to be made tonight is, do you or do you not want to void the existing contract?
Okay, well, the motion on the floor would not void it,
Right.
right? But you're saying there's other alternatives to changing the criteria and then changing it back.
I don't think, I would, once we change it, I will never recommend changing it back. Once you change
Even
it,
if we want to put it on the tax rules, because.
right, even if you want to put it on the tax.
Okay, and Rebecca, can you verify that you have to change the criteria in order for us to, it has to be done in order for us to scale it back to 27, whatever we bid out? Is that a necessary move? Is absolutely necessary that we change this criteria at this point? Or can we reassess during budget for next year?
In order for us to have any credibility whatsoever, we need to have an agreed upon criteria, and we can't apply it subjectively.
But we have.
Well, but at this point, that's completely out the window.
Well, that's disappointing, because I've been on the board for 3 years and I did not know that we were subjectively applying criteria, and now I'm first hearing of it. Trustee McKay.
I would support alternative 3. Do you need a motion?
We have a
Since you
motion.
don't need a motion, it directs, well, I'll make a motion to direct, under alternative 3, direct staff to develop and propose new replacement criteria for village board consideration at the June 17, 2019 meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Trustee Carpenter.
I just have 2 things. So one of the other things that we talked about in committee was making a 2020 initiative to really re-look at our sidewalk program in total. And we sort of came to some consensus about, moving forward for this year, and then reevaluating how we proceed with the sidewalk program, which I think Leanne already filled out the form and is on getting that going. But the other thing that Leanne mentioned in committee is that this particular portion of the village that we're working on did have more sidewalks that were in disrepair. So it's almost like correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak for you, but a perfect storm. So we had, a criteria that we were, really stringent on, and then also spaces that needed additional repair. And so I guess that's my only question about this, alternative 3, is that even if we're relaxing those standards, there are still a lot of sidewalks that need repair in that quadrant of the village. So is that going to get us to within that 15% of the contract?
I can't answer that with absolute certainty. That's what we'll strive for.
So you'll change the criteria to make sure that it fits, even if
I
they're,
don't hear that at all.
is that your question?
Well, no, I mean, I think if we're, there are a lot of sidewalks in that quadrant that need repair, more than in other quadrants in the past.
More than we expected to see.
And so even if we modify that criteria, we could still be over that.
Unless you modify the criteria to make sure it's not.
We also discussed that if some of this deteriorate before the next 10-year cycle, it is possible to go in and out of the normal area and repair sidewalks. So if there are, and they do know if there's a problem with the sidewalk that's substantial, they can go in and fix it before the 10-year cycle.
But the resident has to request.
Not necessarily the resident, a resident.
Right, it's not staff going out. Trustee McKay?
So I think, around the possible concern that possibly we would, underservice that quadrant this year, I think when you come back to us June 17th, I think we're just looking for, does what you recommend adequately service the area, consistent with previous years, and if we're 15%, more than 50% over, then we can assess it at that time. We can make a different decision, but we'll definitely be more in alignment with where we've been servicing the past few years.
Point of order, Rebecca, is that true? Because we'd have to rescind the contract. I think you said today was the day we have to do it.
That was actually a question I was going to ask. So we're not, tonight's the only night that we can rescind the contract if we don't want to move forward for this year. So that's my most immediate concern for purposes, and I'm not hearing that the committee had a desire to do that.
And so that was I apologize, but that's my question was, we have to fit, so the motion on the table, if we were going to keep this contract and we wanted it to be consistent with what the contract says in 15% of the way, we'd have to modify, because the vehicle we're doing that by, or being proposed, is to modify the criteria. There's no other motion here on the table. So we have to propose a modification of that to make sure it fits.
Or we could do what is available under the contract's capacity.
Okay.
And then either do a small program next year, or add whatever remains to the 2021 program.
Yeah, we have other options.
Okay. That clarifies it for me. Leanne, are you comfortable with this approach?
I think we can make any of them work. Like you said, it's a perfect storm. I don't think any of the options are ideal, but I think we can get where we need to be.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Trustee Menta?
I want to clarify that my position is that we should go ahead and spend the money we budgeted and do it, but that I'm not in favor of keeping the higher level of application of criteria and doing a smaller area, because that will result in higher assessments for those people in that smaller area. I'm in favor of keeping the amount budgeted, keeping the area the same, starting with the most dangerous trip hazards, doing those first, and then going down. And if we can't get to every single square that has pits or mudjacking pools in it, then okay, we don't. But like, let's, with this, because I'm thinking about people's assessments and I don't, if we limit the space and keep the same contract, you know, I mean, people's assessments are gonna be getting up towards $2,000, and I think that in some cases, and I think that's, we're just getting way too high, so I guess I'm saying that. In favor of keeping the contract amount, keeping the geographic area the same, and just addressing the, as far as we can go down from the worst to the best.
And that would be rescinding the contract, but would that be with the?
No, it's not rescinding the contract.
Okay.
We're saying the same contract, the same geographic area, but maybe not, instead of doing 60,000, we're not doing 60,000 in that geographic, we're doing 27,000. And, you know, we'll start with the worst, go to the next verse, and see where we end up.
Based on current criteria, or do we need to change the criteria for that?
We need to change the criteria, because the guy went with the current criteria.
Let me rephrase that. The current criteria would address the worst. I mean, it doesn't matter, because 4 feet or 3 feet, whatever's the worst is gonna be the worst. Anyways, if our director is saying the criteria needs to be changed, I trust that. Attorney Bear.
Thank you. I just thought this might help because I kind of had to mapped out the options myself in preparation for the meeting and talking to Dan. If it goes through as it is now and the contract is just awarded and they apply the existing criteria, think about the whole quadrant. Because of the fact that the criteria was imposed more stringently, you'll actually cover a smaller area of that quadrant because physically there's more squares that have been marked on individual properties. In other words, in a property that would have been under the old system, you know, replace 2 panels, now there's 8 or whatever it might be. So if you apply the criteria as it is, you might end up covering only a block or 2 in the quadrant, but if you relax the criteria, tell me if I'm wrong on this, you'll actually get the worst of it in a greater area of the quadrant. Is that a fair? I just thought that might help, because I had to think it through myself, I had to work through that.
Say that again.
If you keep the same criteria, you'll actually end up servicing a smaller geographical region in the quadrant because there's been more designated. So you have maybe 3 or 4 houses that have really nice sidewalks because every single one of them has been replaced, but everything else in the quadrant hasn't been touched because the contract only took you that far. If you reevaluate the criteria, it'll give you the option to hit the worst case scenarios over a greater geographic period within that quadrant.
How?
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because the
I just don't know how.
Because the criteria will be amended in a situation where.
How can that be amended for that to happen?
Well, for example, they could say, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in terms of how bad they are. So if it's actually like this in a trip hazard, that's a 1. If there's a crack that's this big, it's a 2. So they can, so with the contract we have now, the same geographic area, maybe we'd only get 1s and 2s done.
Is that the intent? It's like totally change.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
That's a good way to.
Okay, so it's totally to redo the criteria. It's not like just adjusting like 4 to 3 or.
Well,
It's like redoing the.
for example,
mission
some of
it.
the criteria talk about a certain condition over X percent of the slab. Maybe instead of X percent, we change the criteria to say Y percent, and thereby relaxing the criteria. But still addressing the underlying condition, but maybe not to the nth degree that we had previously.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I know there's residents. I wanted to say one other thing. How do we, I think it's just direction, but is it during budget that we would have further discussion? I know that you said there's a part, staff did not submit. We were emailed out the staff priorities. I guess it could be amended, but, or
I did.
I put it in the folder.
I'm sorry, that's what Rebecca just told me, so I apologize if that's incorrect. If it is in there, then that's great. If not, then one of us obviously could submit it as a board initiative as well, which I'd be happy to do, and anyone that wants to work with me can do that. I think there's value in looking at the village, looking at sidewalks village-wide and assessing what are the worst condition sidewalks, because I have gotten emails from residents that it does make sense. If in this quadrant, there's a really bad one, without a resident complaining, we might not get to it, and it might be worse than the one that's meeting our criteria in this quadrant. So I do find value in looking village-wide at what are our worst, based on whatever criteria the board finally adopts, what are the worst sidewalks from staff and engineering perspective.
But I think from an implementation perspective, we have to do it in project areas. We can't do it village-wide every 2 years.
We can talk about that, but that's something that we can talk about during the prioritization, and I feel that there is value in that. Okay.
I'm sorry, but it is on cash.
It is? Okay, thank you, I apologize. So we don't need to. All right, so we have does anyone else have any discussion? Anybody from the residents? Anyone have any comments? If you do,
I think David actually.
Hey, can you come to the microphone, say your name and address and then your comment?
No, Anastasia Brockmeyer, 4313 Woodford. I think David has summed it up pretty well. I think you need to triage because this is crazy. I walk those streets every day with my dog, and there was no consistent application of what needed to be changed and what didn't need to be.
Actually, there was.
Oh, no.
Okay.
It was not consistent. That was a band of drunken sailors walking with spray paint. It was really not applied consistently. And I think you summed it up well, so yeah.
Okay, thank you, and thank you guys for staying for the whole meeting. I know it's going late. Any other discussion? Otherwise, can you reread the motion?
Yes. Direct staff to develop, propose new replacement criteria for village board consideration for 2017 to 2019.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion carries 6-1. Is that it for necessary items? If so, I'd like to make a motion to, I'm sorry, Leanne.
Could I ask that you just consider something? Our utility foreman, Dave Quincy, has been here for about 4 hours to present to you the ordinance change. We can do it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, do we need to move that up? Is it?
If you go back, isn't it?
We haven't really finished the
We haven't
consent
finished the
agenda,
consent
but
agenda.
So why don't we go back to 9A, and then go back to the items that were not removed from the consent agenda? We haven't done that.
Nope.
Okay, and then, but make sure we put in the minutes exactly what we're holding over until, that's all we ask, just for clarity.
Okay, so, are you saying we should finish the consent agenda?
No, why don't we just make a motion to go back to 9A? Is there a unanimous consent, just ask if there's unanimous consent to do that?
Okay.
So just to clarify, is this to go out of order of the agenda?
It is.
Sure, let's do it.
I support that.
Okay, so basically we're going to now, take up 9A, and then once that's done, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. If it's seconded and that passed, before it passes, I would like Clerk Bartley to read into the minutes, which items we have outstanding for our next meeting.
Could we also clean up, just to make sure that we've approved the other items that were not removed from the consent agenda?
Yeah, that would be stated, right? Yeah, for the next meeting. I think that's what we just talked about.
Yeah, everything was approved except for the two items that were removed.
Awesome, okay, great.
And they're not timely.
They're not timely.
Okay, so everyone's okay, so now we will take up agenda item 9A.
Consider ordinance 3000, repealing and replacing subpart A of section 18, service piping for meter settings of chapter 514, water and sewers.
Exciting stuff. This is actually in advance of our meter replacement program, and what this does is cleans up and modernizes the language of an existing code that we